And there's times I find myself in a moment, thinking about the girl I used to know. When my arms know that I'm all alone, I forget that my wings are made of stone. I can fly, my wings.
I guess sort of got delayed, but wow.
That in my house.
End of the trail. It's sort of what this is.
This is going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get really old.
I met this guy a long, long time ago. I think you were 17 and I was like 20, 21, and we did a movie at Disney together. And I instantly knew, number one, that he was a good actor. We connected, but number two, that I was going to be friends with him. And here we are. So, and I'm really honored to be able to conduct this panel because the two things that I'm sure you all know his work, but the two things that I can share right away is that he's a nice guy, and number two, he's really smart. And number three, he is very funny. So hopefully we'll have a good time here.
The order might be different there.
All right. So we're going to go back in the Wayback Machine. I know that baseball was your passion, and as a kid, all your passion was directed towards becoming a Major League Baseball player. But in an odd sort of ironic way, it's what got you into acting too, right?
Yeah, what's true is that, you know, when you're kids, you know, you start developing at a very early age, desires turn into potential projects for the future, and however you look at that and however much you become interested in that is, I think, has a lot to do with how hard you go after something or how much you want to do something. And while it's true that my dad was a professional baseball player, we had semi-pro ball players in the family before that. But my dad's godfather was Lefty Gomez, and my dad traveled with the Yankees when they were all those great teams. And so he really learned the game of baseball from the greatest champions of all in that game. Passed that on to his son, and my oldest sister had a son who was in the big league for 8 years, played 20 years of pro ball. So that was the family business. We have another one coming up now who shows a great deal of talent. But while it's true that that happened to me as a young boy, also at the same time I was probably doing something that you were doing a lot of, which was in our backyard we had one of those doughboy pools. And I looked at that one day, and I guess I'd seen Robin Hood or I'd read about it. And my sisters and I were always putting on shows and stuff. So I look at that and I went, wait a minute, I'm about to add something to this. I was like 8 years old. And I went and I got a plank of wood and put it across the top of that thing. And I said, I gave, you know, my buddy Mario Carrillo, who was kind of heavy, gave him a stick for a sword, and I said, all right, let's get out in the middle of this thing and get it going, right? And one of us is going in the water. And I thought, that'd be fun to do, and it's what my dad was doing. So I don't know, I think I had as much desire to do something with telling stories as much as I did playing baseball.
And then I remember you telling me there was an interview for a movie that was going to...
Yeah, there you go. He was trying to lead me into something that's actually interesting. So one day my dad, now I'm 10 years old, and my dad came home, and you know, I came from a family, we'll get into this probably a little bit later on, that, you know, when my dad got a job, we celebrated. We always used to do that. Whenever I got a job, we'd celebrate. We got a very different look at what this business had to offer for us than others in it. And my dad came home one day and started talking about it, and I'm listening to him, and I said, what is this? And he said, well, it's a movie called Safe at Home, and really the star of the movie is a 10-year-old kid. And I was like, what you were talking about, you said Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, what was that? And he said, yeah, it's Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle are in the movie a lot. I said, so the kid who plays the kid in it gets to hang out with Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle? He said, you want to do an interview for it? I said, yeah. How do I do that? He said, call up Hilda, tell her you want to interview for it. So I called up his agent, and I went in with my dad, and we did the read through. And halfway through the read through, this is, you know, it's kind of, I'm bragging on myself a little bit, but it was funny. Halfway through the interview, the director, it's on a Saturday afternoon, the director takes the script and throws it down on the desk, and I thought, oh God, what have I done? I forgot a line or something, you know? And then my dad looked at him, and I looked at my dad, and he goes, no, I cast this role Thursday. I'm just doing this as a favor to your agent, and he's perfect. So I was off the hook. I thought I was in trouble there for a while. So I came out of that, and my dad, I could tell he was pleased, you know, and I said, so that's it? He said, that's it. Hit your mark, stay the line, and that's it. And I said, great. He said, what do you want to do? Well, I had a bike route at that time, and I was making whatever you make, $9 every 3 years or whatever. And so I said, well, how much do you get paid? And which is the best question I ever asked about this business. And he said, well, minimum is $110 a day. And I'd just been at the Schwinn bicycle shop that afternoon. $55 bought you a brand new with the racing thing that you had to have. And my sister liked it too. I said, so if I could work one day, I could get a bicycle for my sister, for Jill and me. And he said, yeah. So I said, okay. He said, call her up for one. So I called her out, and I said, I want to do this. And I remember the first day I got a one-day job, and I went down to that Schwinn bicycle store with $110 in my hand and said, I want that one and that one. Count me in.
So, as a kid, were you like me? Were you a big Western fan?
Well, you sort of, by de facto, had to be, because that's what that inundated our television sets when we were young. Now, no, because in our family, even though my dad was an actor, he put shoes on our feet and food on the table by acting, we were not allowed to watch television except for sporting events, once in a while shows that he did, because that was the only way you'd ever see him. And you know, special news events. But other than that, sometimes we'd turn the TV set on, we'd hear him coming, he's coming in, turn the TV on. So we weren't allowed to, and I always thought that was a blessing in disguise for me in the business that I ended up working in for all my life, because I never saw, unlike a lot of great directors, writers, actors, unlike them, I didn't have the advent of watching lots of it. But what that did do, I think, was make me legitimately, authentically creative. I did it my way. I didn't know how to do it any other way. So we used to imitate what we thought was horrible acting, which was daytime TV.
Right.
That's really dangerous. I mean, if you start to believe that that's the way people behave, you're done. I mean, that's just not the way world works, right? So I would watch that stuff, and then I'd watch a lot of the stuff that your dad and my dad probably did together, and I would look at it and go, "That's no, I don't like that."
And we found out my dad was a writer and wrote a lot of westerns, and we found out in researching before this that his dad Bing appeared in 4 of my dad's shows that he had written.
Well, you're talking about men who. I mean, you were telling me
Made a few credits, yeah. Bing Russell, I looked it up. He had 178 Western credits. That's just the Western.
Just a Western. He died 126 times. I won't do 126 of anything in my life.
And Kurt also said that he died how many times?
126 times. That's what he said. Now he was a truth teller, but he could make a story better. But and he never ruined a good story with the truth. But I don't know. 126 times. That's yeah.
One of the things that I found, and he doesn't know about this too, is that his dad appeared in the movie Gunfight at OK Corral. Also in 3 episodes of The Legend of Wyatt Earp. And one of his last appearances was in the movie about Earp as an older man, Sundown, in Hollywood. And Bing was in all of those Wyatt Earp movies.
And those guys, like I said, Mike and I have often talked about it in the same vernacular, using the same words. But it was a business. I mean, there was no such thing early on in my life, and I don't, as far as I know, I don't know if my dad ever turned a roll down. Right. Those days, their agent used to call you up on the phone and tell you they got you a job. And, you fantastic, what is it, Where you're playing an East German tennis player, he kills the umpire, okay? You started working on that right now. And, whatever it was, you went to work, and there was no I don't think I want to do that.
Well, but going along the Western thing, and I'm not sure you know this, but your first real Western was a television series called The Travels of Jaimie McPheeters.
Yeah, I think it was the first thing I ever did that was Western, and what I remember about that, of course, it was a great experience, and it was great. I was 11 and 12 years old, 11 and 12. We did 26 shows. And Dan O'Hurley was the main guy. He was playing the father. I was playing Jaimie McPheeters. And later on, Charlie Bronson came into the show.
Right.
But in order to get ready for the show, which was really great, because my dad had horses all his life and whatnot, and then he got us, my older sister and myself, a horse, Twink, and so I had been working and taking care of the horse now for a couple of years. But the way I grew up was my dad knew every stunt guy and their families. And they were constantly around the house, and we were constantly around them, even though baseball at that time was beginning to be something that was important to me. And because of that, I started learning stuff on horse. Well, one of the first things that happened before that was I started getting jobs doubling for kids. And as you'll remember, back in that day, if one of the things you could say when they asked you if you could ride, you mean
like the wind,
forward, backward, flying W or where, And it was like if you were an actor and you could do your own stuff on a horse. That was a big call. That's a feather in your cap. You could get a job a lot easier than a guy who couldn't. They didn't have to hire 2 people. So that started my journey with stunt guys. And to get ready for Jaimie McPheeters, I had to learn to drive a pair, a team, and then a 4-up. And in those days, you actually got a license. And I was a licensed 12-year-old to drive a 4-up. Probably one of the few 12-year-olds that ever flipped one of those Conestoga wagons, too. I can remember coming down there, Dan O'Hurley is sitting on the right, and I'm watching these 4 or 5, we're about 5th, we're number 5, and there's a couple of cameras down there, and we're beating it, we're coming downhill, we're gonna make a hard left-hand turn, but you know, we got enough slide going, we do it a couple of times, and I'm driving the 4-up, and now, very rarely did I stand up in that thing, but man, I could see this coming, and I watched the 2 guys in front of me, and they started to hit a rut and lift, and I said, man, I can't get in that rut. And then halfway down there, I realized I can't get out of the rut. And now I stood up, and I mean, I had everything I had, and you know, holding him and gee-hawing the hell out of it. And finally, I turned and I said, "Get ready to jump!" And we hit that thing, and man, that way I jumped left. He actually went down. He was, I don't know. I thought he went down, and the wagon flipped over him. I'd gone this way. But I want to tell you something, I just made it because if I'd have waited another quarter of a second, you know that the inertia of the Conestoga wagon flipping this way, I would have hit the peak of that thing, and I'd have been 30 feet in the air. Yeah. I was lucky I got off in time, but I was really afraid what had happened to him. But also, you know, it was that thing in your head, it's like, God damn it, this wasn't my fault. I saw 3 and 4 going in, and there was nothing we could do. So, you know, that was the beginning of my, you know, kind of awareness.
Well, Charles Bronson was on that show.
He came in on show. He came in after the first 13.
To save it or something.
Well, no, he came in from. There was a man named Michael Whitney who was a ball player, a professional baseball player, in the Dodger chain, I think. And anyway, he did 13. They decided to replace that character with Charles Bronson, who came in, and I just loved Charlie. He just, I don't know, we just had a great time. He was not a very nice man at that time. A lot of people really didn't like him. I had some stories about him that I wouldn't tell. not because they're bad, just because they're awful to tell. But he was special in my life, and I had the opportunity many, many years later to have him. He was giving an award, and I just did it because it was Charlie Bronson going to give the award. I just couldn't believe it. He looked just fantastic. He was an older man then, in his 80s. But yeah, Charlie on that set was, there was just something about him that I really loved.
Yeah, obviously, and he went on to do some great.
Well, it was out of that, he came out of that, yeah, it was like Clint Eastwood and him and other fellas were going to, they were going to Europe at that time to try to make their new way around back to America as movie stars. Oh, wow. He did that then. Yeah.
And then I think Bing worked with Charles Bronson quite a few times.
Yeah, actually.
Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, they didn't get along too good. My dad was pretty handy with his fists, so there's a few tales about him around there. Those boys played a little different back then.
Oh boy.
But no, it was really funny because when he came on the show, the billing was, you know, I was playing Jaimie McPheeters, I was starring as Jaimie, and the billing was what the billing was. And my dad got word that MGM had changed the billing. Somehow, I didn't hear any of this until later.
Right.
And Charlie had been, evidently Charlie was going to be billed above me. Now he was Charles Bronson, but he wasn't the Charles Bronson we know.
Right.
And my dad said, "Oh, okay." So my dad said, "Hey, feel like going to San Diego for the weekend?" And yeah, well, we're going to have friends down there. Go down there, and my mom knows something's up. And Monday morning comes, and we're still down in San Diego. I'm not at work. And I said, "Hey, Dad, what?" He said, they're doing a billing thing. And he said, "Well, we'll go down later on." And I said, "Oh, they got something to work out?" He said, "Yeah, we got something to work out." And what it was to work out was either you work that out, or your Jaimie isn't coming back.
Right.
And when Charlie found out who Jaimie's father was, he said, he's not bluffing. He ain't bluffing. So he got straightened out.
The other thing I remember about Jaimie McPheeters was the Osmond brothers were on it.
Yeah, the Osmond brothers were a fabulous family. And we had a ball. You know, we were in school together because we were the only kids, and they're just a great bunch of guys. We just had a ball. And then again, later on in life, you know, it's the great thing about our job is that you get to run into people you haven't seen in a long, long time. You had a great time with, and I got to see them years later on a terrible show called, if you ever watch YouTube, I've been shown it a couple times. I got roped in. I owed Disney a project, and they owed me money to do one. So we ended up. How this came about, it was awful. It's called, I think it's called Disneyland After Dark, and it was a tour around Disneyland. You're gonna see a haunted mansion. It was being introduced or something, and whatever. And I had recently cut an album.
Russell Sings.
Russell Sings, and wow.
Sugar.
No, it was just amazing. It was like pulling teeth. And they were great, but I had to do a couple of numbers.
I remember.
It's like, oh Jesus, he might
I have teased him about Kurt Russell singing for years. But one of the backup singers on Kurt Russell Sings, do you remember that?
Well, there was a lot of them, and one of the guys' names was Austin, and he'd get closer and closer and closer to the microphone until I was finally doing this one here.
Well, one of the backup singers was a girl named Cheryl Stoppelmore.
Cheryl Stoppelmore, yeah. She
became Cheryl Ladd.
South Dakota, and she did
David Ladd. Yeah.
Josie and the Pussycats was what she was doing first, I think. And then she did what was the other show?
Charlie's Angels.
Charlie's Angels, yeah. There you go. Yeah. I remember Charlie's Angels. Tim Matheson, I did a show called The Quest, 1975
We're going to get to that.
or 6 or something. And pretty good show, and very good writer. And Tim and I are doing that show. Now, you know, network TV, you don't know who you're going to be up against, when you're going to be on. You just do your show as best you can. So it was a Western, we were having fun. Spent a lot of time on a horse on that one. That was, I mean, I'd get on my horse in the morning and get off for lunch and get back on the horse. Many, many days. And I was playing a guy who'd been brought up in Indians, so I was always bareback. That was a long day. But anyway, sometimes. But Tim and I, the only way to see your shows in those days was to just watch it come on TV. So we're going to watch our show for the first time. And, you know, we're hoping we do well and the numbers do well. We'll soon do this show for 10 years. Get to do that, it'd be fun, wouldn't it? And so we watched until the first commercial, kind of look at each other like, yeah, hey, you know, it looks pretty good. And what's this Charlie's Angels thing? These three girls, ding, 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 ding. We never went back to our show. We said, well, that's the end of that. We don't want to watch it.
As you're talking about the Quest, we were living together, and I loved your outfit on the Quest, the buckskins, because when I was a kid, I was always the Indian. You know, all my other friends were the Cowboys.
Irish Indians are the best.
Red-headed Indian. And he'd come, sometimes he'd wear this to our condominium in Encino, and he'd just come home because he had to get up at 5 in the morning and go back. And here he was. I remember there was an old lady lived next door, and he walked in the full buckskin regalia, and she screamed and ran back into the apartment. Anyhow,
it wasn't from the outfit, Mike.
Thank you. So, having done all these Westerns on TV, you started, after Jaimie McPheeters, you started doing a lot of just single episodes as guest star on a lot of Westerns. You did a couple of Virginians, you did The Legend of Jesse James, you did Laredo, you did The Road West, I don't remember that one, and a couple Gunsmokes. But the one that fascinated me, and I know probably meant the most to you, was you did 5 episodes of Daniel Boone with Fess Parker.
Yeah, he's a great man. You know, it's funny, every once in a while, you meet somebody, it doesn't make any difference what age. I had that 30 seconds into meeting Dakota Fanning when she was 10 years old. I said, this is a great human being here. You're gonna learn a lot from this person. And there I was in my 40s or whatever, you know. It doesn't make any difference. I felt that way about meeting Fess. I didn't realize I'd done that many. Just had always had a good time. But it was the sort of conversation and just the way he was, the osmotic get that would happen when you were around him. Classy, I mean, everything you've ever thought about Fess Parker in positive ways is very true. Then he was the first person that I ever knew of that moved away. He was able to continue to have a career and do his career, but he moved away. And that always stuck with me, and would be something that I would do in my life when I was 25 years old. Right after we lived together, I headed out. I said to myself, either you're going to live the life you want to live, or you're going to talk about it all your life. So I moved to Colorado because I wanted to get into ranching, and I wanted to get into raising Appaloosas at the time, and cattle, hopefully, somewhere along the line, which I eventually did. But Fess Parker was someone who I went many, many years later with my mom, because my mom and Fess got along very well too. They were very friendly. But I did that when he was making wine up in Santa Maria area, Santa Ynez. And I had been on wine trips. I'll make this short as I can, but I'd been on wine trips. I was getting very interested in wine. And at that luncheon that day, I don't know if he remembered me or not. Of course he did. He was authentic. And we started talking about wine, and I could see how much he was enjoying that moment, that afternoon, that day. And I thought, that's a good place to be. And eventually, we were working on doing something together at his vineyard when Fess died. And I, 6 months later, went to a different place and ended up, I've been making wine now for about 14 years, and I love it. And it was Fess at that lunch, and he said, Kurt, you don't have an interest in wine, you have a passion for it. He said, you should follow that. And so I decided to do that, but that was because of Fess. But Fess was, you know, I've always been one of those actors. I don't like to hear actors talk politics. I just don't want to hear it. And I don't want to hear myself talk about it either. I just don't. I mean, for a lot of reasons, but I think the biggest reason being it just eliminates all mystery about you, which is terrible for an actor. I would never deny a story about me on anything because, hey, that's kind of weird. Yeah, it is, isn't it? You know, that's in there too. But I will say that I have been a very strong, not Johnny-come-lately libertarian since I was 20 years old. And Fess was too. So it was interesting to, at a very early age, have a connection in a way of looking at life. And Fess and I shared that, so I think that was another thing we enjoyed.
Great. The thing that always impressed me about Fess Parker, he actually had it in his contract that they had to helicopter him. You know, he got out of Hollywood.
He was able to do both. I mean, and he didn't do it out of spite or anything. He just didn't want. He wouldn't live where he wanted to live, you know. And that was the way to do it.
Yeah, and he embodied, the real man embodied a lot of the Daniel Boone, David Crockett aspects that you saw in it, which made it so authentic when you watched the shows. Anyhow, great guy. Again, you have to answer this truthfully. Who gave the better performance in the computer wore tennis shoes, you or me?
You. Remember you and I worked together.
I can die now. That's good.
Hesitation.
I wanted to ask you about, and it was when we were together, you did it wasn't a real Western, but it was a very interesting series. It lasted so short time, called The New Land.
It was a. The movie was The New Land. It was like a. What's his name? The great Bill director. The director of The New Land, the movie. Come on, Mike.
Oh gosh.
My memory.
All this stuff. Yeah, it was based on a movie.
What's his name? The Grays of Lestrada.
Yeah. I know who you mean.
You know, he's very Sven Gardner. Come on, what's his name?
Something. Yeah.
Somebody yell it out.
Sven Gardner.
He was a great Swedish director. A lot of. I know you're all into those movies. I figured I'd ask, but he was a great.
It was an interesting show. I mean, it didn't last very long.
It was mentioned by many as the best new show that year. Which, having read that, I was okay. Well, that's certain death, and it was. We were doing an authentic sort of version of people coming from the old land to the new land, and it was a good show. Bonnie Bedelia was really great. No, not Jan. What? Jan? No. Ingmar Bergman. Thank you.
Thank you.
See, I publicly admit my ignorance. It's okay. It wasn't just a memory lapse. We're getting close. Bergman. Yeah, it was his movie, and then Bill did a television version. Yeah.
I'm the one that's supposed to.
Westernish.
Yeah. But The New Land was a very fascinating, interesting thing, and I thought he had a nice Swedish accent and stuff. Anyhow, all right. So, you talked a little bit about the quest, working with Tim Matheson, which you enjoyed, I think.
Great guy, really great guy.
This was around the time, though, that both you and I started getting interested in writing rather than just the acting. And so you were given the opportunity to have some story input on that series, right? Tracy Keenan Wynn originated it, you know.
Tracy wrote the pilot. We did the pilot. Had three of the wildest days of my life as an actor, which, by the way, don't compare to 1 hour of being a baseball player. Seriously. When you got 25 guys trying to top each other for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, it's going on. And it was a different time, different era, different time, all that. Let's see, there was Keenan Wynn, there was French. Remember he had the television, he was a great guy. Brian Keith.
Oh, right.
And there was one other who was a seriously heavy drinker. And I was 25 years old, and I ran into Brian on a Friday night at around 11 o'clock. Then we ran into Keenan. Then they wanted to run into, and they did. Wasn't Lee Marvin? I could have been Lee Marvin. I don't remember, but it was. He was a big World War II guy, and at this point was a severe alcoholic. All of them were. And how we showed up at 6 o'clock for makeup on Monday morning, I couldn't possibly tell you. But I was low man on the totem pole, I can tell you that. These guys were, they were in another league. These were the guys that were in my dad's life. I mean, it was just, it didn't stop. Start, but no stop.
On the quest, I was saying to you, the 6 degrees of separation thing. You worked with everybody, but on that series, Dan O'Hurley, he came back, who we had Jaimie McPheeters with, but people like Woody Stroud and Dandy Don Meredith and Ty Harden and Richard Blue and Bill Williams, who had been a B-Western.
Big Arms Bill.
Yeah. Do you recall any special moments of those people, or?
I mean, it was constant, but I'm not good at that. I'm not the good storyteller memory guy. If the image comes back into my head, then I remember it. But we just had a great time. It was mostly Tim and myself. We were young guys. I mean, We were 24, 25 years old. Neither one of us were married, so we were having fun. You know, we were just having a good time.
Yeah, and I think when the quest was canceled, that's when you retreated to Colorado. That was when you went off and got away. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had this opportunity, and I think part of it was looking at what Fess had done. And then my agent at the time was saying, well, if you move away, you're done. And I said, I don't think so. I mean, I'll come back every 3 months, and if you put the things together, we can do that. So I won't tell you who this agent was, but I'll give you this little story. Of course, my somewhat easy demeanor, I'll call it, can be very misread. And I've always had an easy demeanor in this business. But so I moved to Colorado, and moved about half hour down the road from Aspen, and there's some good land around there, and really nice people. And I bought this place. In those days, again, being an actor, if I couldn't pay cash for it, I didn't buy it, because you never knew when you're going to work again. So I had enough money and bought this house, getting a look at it, and every 2-3 months, my agent would, have 7 or 8 things, and I'd come back. I'd fly back to Los Angeles and sit down. So this one time I come back, and there's this, and there's that, and there's this, and there's that, and about halfway through it, she says, and then, oh, Joyce Selznick is doing this thing. They're going to do a project. It's called Elvis. It's about Elvis Presley. And then he continues down through the stuff. I said, okay. Yeah. Well, so I've got to be there Tuesday for that. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, yeah, that's it. I said, go back a minute. Did you say Elvis? They're doing a movie on Elvis? Yeah, I think it's a movie of the week or something. He said it's Joyce is she's the casting girl on it. She's casting agent. I said, well, yeah, that sounds interesting. And he went on to something else. 10 minutes later, I said, let's go back to that Elvis thing again. And he looks at me and he goes, what? Joyce is doing a thing. What, do you think you can play Elvis? I knew I was getting a new goddamn agent at that moment. That's going to be a first in the family, because there had been no switches, but that one was going to happen. And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. So I would like to sit down with Joyce and have that moment, and that changed the trajectory of my career.
It did change your life, and it proved
a totally different world.
Proved to everybody what
it's just a difference. It's like, wait a minute, what's that?
And that put you into films, and you did some pretty good ones with John Carpenter.
Put me back into films. When you and I were working together, I did movies.
Oh, that's right.
I did the movies for a long time. Didn't do any television, and I was doing movies. Now I went back into television, and now it's like coming back and going into the world that I felt much more comfortable in, because television is a weird world. I mean, when it was only network, it wasn't. There was no Hulu and Amazon and Netflix and whatnot. None of that was around. It was just network TV. So there are rules and regulations and inside baseball stuff in network television that only they understand, and it can come down to a personality. It can come down to one person who likes or dislikes the show, whether the numbers are good or not. And there's a lot of politics involved with it that I'm not a part of. I'm a trench guy. I just go to work and do we make the movie. But it was an explosion. I mean, it was the most watched television in history at that point, and it was all about seeing if movie of the weeks that were original content could compete with first run movies on television. We were up against the first running of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and the second running of Gone with the Wind, I think it was, or one of those huge Wizard of Oz stuff. It wasn't that, but it was. I think it was Gone with the Wind, and we took the night, which meant
I think
they can do movie of the weeks.
It was the highest.
He could do movies.
Anyhow, and you went on to make a lot of great films, but there was a big gap between The Quest and the next Western you made. And the next Western you made was a little film called Tombstone. Anyway, moving on. Talk about Tombstone. What a
Tombstone's really hard.
You've told me a million times.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Best script you ever read, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably was. Hard to talk about Tombstone. There's so many. I've been in. How do you say this? There, you know, I believe that when you give somebody your word, you give them your word. Sometimes it's a little tough to swallow, but Tombstone. So the first thing that I could do was make sure that that was not lost. The other things that you do as an actor when you are in a certain position, on this one I had gone out and gotten the money for the movie. I had backed the director who was fired after a week and a half. I felt responsible that the movie get made, and I made sure that it was made. And I made sure that it was made as close to what I felt when I read the script that it deserved to hold to that. Well, the guy who wrote it was directing it, and he was a phenomenal writer, and he'd never directed before, and then it showed. So he was replaced. It's always your job on any movie to, as you know, Mike, to come in and be ready with ideas and be ready to play in the sandbox, and that's the fun of the game. Sometimes there's more to it than that for you because you've asked someone to put $25 million on the line, and if you've told them you're going to get $1 back, you better get $25 million and $1. And for a Western at that time, that wasn't that easy. So once the director had been replaced, I still had the my own burden of saying this has to be completed. It has to be completed correctly. So I did my best to make sure that that happened, and we had all taken half the salary we normally got to do the movie. He had cast it great, but we had 22 pages to lose. So in that regard, I will be very blunt, because some very nice people were sent to help. It was way too complicated a screenplay for them to understand and be helpful. So thank you, you can go home. The people here are the ones who are going to make the movie. And chopping 22 pages out of a perfect screenplay, it's easy to chop 22 pages out of a piece of shit. It's not that easy to do out of something that's very hard. It's very hard and fast and true and very good. That was left up to me. And that meant sacrifices that were going to have to be made by me, because you can't ask other people to do something, have it fall apart, and then ask them to continue to do it unless you show faith. And the only way you can show faith sometimes is to say, you won't be affected.
Right.
That you're gonna, what you came to do, you're gonna do. I have to I gotta juggle some things around to make sure those things are put in the proper places and they have the proper impact. And if I can do that, then all of us together, from craft service on up, we can have a movie that will have a lot of impact. It might not be the movie that it could have been, but it'll have a lot of impact. And it just meant shifting my mindset from why I wanted to do the movie to why I wanted to get the movie made. And I knew that I had an ace up my sleeve with a performance that could replace another performance. And it would stand up, really be worthy, and that was Val Kilmer playing Doc Holliday. So I made sure, number one, that happened, and all the others were as spectacular, I think, as they were.
Oh, yeah.
But the greatest thing about Tombstone was, and always will be, the screenplay you never saw. It's that good. It's that good. It's Godfather good.
Yeah.
For people who are Western fans, you see something like Tombstone and, you know, the impact's there, but it rings in your ears when you hear some lines in that movie. It's like, you watch a movie like Casablanca and every line is a double entendre, it's perfectly placed, or it's set perfectly by the actor or whatever. You look at Westerns, there's a lot of Westerns to love. We all share that. But when you come down to pure conversation, pure dialogue, pure one person saying something to another person for the benefit of storytelling, man, there's just so many favorites to pick from, right? I mean, that's just my game.
Well, then there's another gap after Tombstone, a larger gap, even more than 17 years, to a film called Bone Tomahawk. Again, a very unusual one.
See that? What I love about the reactions here is my guess is 50 years from now, when it comes to anything I did Westerns-wise, this movie falls into my John Carpenter life. It took the world 20 to 30 years to get what we were doing. 30 years from now, for all of you people who really like Western movies, you won't be talking about with my life. Your grandchildren will go, what the Bone Tomahawk? What? What? It's like, belongs in that, it's a one-off. It's a one-off. It's a one-off thing. It's like, what am I watching here? It starts off as one thing that's sweet.
Sort of sweet John Ford Western.
Yeah, it's, moving right along, and then,
whoa.
And then it's just simply,
you're back in the thing.
The wrong bunch of boys here.
Suddenly you're McGreevey in the thing.
No, you see, that was the problem. Everybody has to they have to put it into a category.
You can't.
I want to make sure this movie gets done, because if you go to the video store, or if there was a list of videos for your television set and action, they do it on the action, adventure, this, that, Western, genres, this and that. I look at that and went, I've got to do this movie, because there will be a day when they've run out of categories and it just goes, Bone Tomahawk. There are some people already now who they said that's like my favorite movie ever for so many different reasons. And it's a very simple telling of a tale, but it's about people.
Yeah.
And it's as much about those troglodytes as it is us in the world we understand. But it was also very, it reminds me of...
Very touching.
Yeah, it reminds me of some of the things when you read great Western stories and you think, what the hell has happened to the American male in the last 120 years?
Right.
Whoa, how'd that happen? To go from what was to what is now. And it's a cycle. I mean, it'll cycle back and cycle and this and that. But if you watch Bone Tomahawk, what's underneath all of that is the kind of men they were. And that's what that story is. There was one woman in it who you can say that, you can't say that's the way it was about women in that time, because this is not about her, but that's not fair to say. It's all about her. And it's all about things like, when you start watching, it's things like a man who's just gone past his middle age. And if you're attracted to a woman you're not, those in that time, that you're not supposed to feel it, say it, do anything about it, but when you satisfy your own, you satisfy yourself, and in that case, the character I played, he dies for this woman. He's so caught up by her that he dies for her, but you never see that. He would never, ever cross that line in any way, shape, or form. So one of the things I love about Bone Tomahawk, people watch that movie, they've never said anything about that. Right. To me, it's what makes the movie work.
Wow. I think it's one of your best performances, too.
Well, I like it. Again, that guy's a great Western writer. Oh, yeah. But,
and some great moments.
He's a great Western writer. I mean, he's Race of the Broken Land, if you've never read that, that's a good one. I wouldn't mind playing Long Clay.
Right on top of Bone Tomahawk, you worked for the second time for a director named Quentin Tarantino, pretty good director, writer, to make the Hateful Eight. So how do you feel about the character of the hangman, John Ruth?
Well, you know, Quentin always saw him as, we did a reading of it. We did a reading of the play. I don't really know why he wanted to do a reading of the play, whether he wanted to just get it out of his system, and maybe that was all it was going to be. I never really talked to him much about it. I didn't even know. He called me up and we were going to do a reading of it. Then I found out 2 days into, why are we rehearsing for a reading? All right, Quentin wants to do it. So next thing I know is, we're doing the reading in front of 1,200 people. Oh, okay, where? The Ace, I don't know, Ace Hardware, right? No, it's like Ace, the Ace Hotel, some hotel in Los Angeles that's an old connected thing. I had never heard of it. And I was like, oh, okay, so he's, you know, I get a take on the character off of a little something we did from the first movie we worked on together, Death Proof. I just got tired. There's a scene and you know, sometimes you get into these rhythms where you're kind of trying to find something in the scene, and when you're talking about Tarantino, it's just always great dialogue, it's always interesting, and suddenly we're on take 12 of this thing and I'm on my knees and I'm repeating this poem to this girl who I'm hoping to kill, and in my car, and I'm just like I am right now. I'm just sitting there getting bored with myself. And I, you know, out of my mouth, I started to just do that. I don't know why, but I did. And so I just to do something that doesn't bore me anymore. And of course, he's the only director that said, great, now go back to the beginning. Do it from the beginning. Do it from the thing. Do it, just do it, just go. So that ends up in the movie, right? So now I think, okay, this guy, John Ruth, he's a blusterer, but he's a bit of a lovable blusterer. So how about, you want a John Wayne kind of a thing? And he said, yeah, go do that. Did that for the reading, the read-through. The read-through was fun, did it. And then 6 months later, he wants to do the movie or whatever. Now we go to the movie, go to the first reading of the thing. I get 3 words and he goes, now drop the John Wayne thing. Oh, okay, that's why I wasn't hired. Okay, thank you. So it was great. He looked at me and he said, it's Claude Akins. I said, got it. Okay, I worked with Claude. I got it. And it's Claude, and he's tired, and he's beat, and he's actually the only nice guy in the room.
Absolutely.
Would never know it from his behavior, but he's actually, he should listen to himself.
Well, I think we're running out of time here, so I'm going to open up,
Okay.
if anybody wants to ask her a question. I have one more question. Who is better than Now You See Him, Now You Don't? You, me, or Ed Begley Jr.?
Were you in that one?
Oh, God.
I gave you one, I'm not going to give you 2 for crying out loud. Questions and answers. There's someone right there. Wait, you're the moderator. You go.
Hi, Kurt. My name is Gordon Anderson. I'm with the city of Tombstone, Arizona. You're a big hit down there, and I'm also with the Arizona Film.
I should have bought the Imperial Palace Hotel.
I'm also with the Arizona Film Commission, and I produced the 25th cast reunion of the movie Tombstone in 2018. We reached out to you, you were overseas, and we missed you. We'd love to do a 30th in next year.
I won't be there.
And you,
I don't know where I'll be, but it won't be in Tombstone.
I would like to talk to you later about it in any case. Just one question. What is your opinion of the Earp, Clanton, McLaury feud?
Well, it's very good. It's it's right there with the McCoy, Hatfield and McCoys. It always comes down to a man who shot Liberty Valance. When the legend beats the facts, print the legend or something like that. I forgot what it is. That's what it's become. There's 15 guys over here that are the world's greatest experts, Western guys ever, and they'll tell you where that's all crap. And then there was this, there was that, and the other. And then there's 15 guys over here that say, no, that's not it. Look at here, look what happened to so and so and so and so. Is that Peter Shreko? Yeah, I thought so. We still look somewhat. How you doing, Peter? Good to see you. So there's all these things. I was just thinking of your book, for instance, The Guns of Tombstone, which remember. And there's a great bunch of stuff in there from John Fasano. You can throw that shit out. Yeah, done. He did? Oh, we all gonna die. So I look at that and I say, well, I don't know. I wasn't there. One of my favorite things that Brando used to say, was you there, Charlie? No, I wasn't there. I didn't see it. So I go to the accounts that were written. Now, I live in 2020. I know what I read in the newspaper today. Yeah, that's a good laugh for it. Yeah. I know what's written about me and what has been written about me. It's insane. And so I think back in those days, and I've learned something about America. And the Wild West is maybe the prime example. I don't know if anybody knows history because I wasn't there. And I think I would have maybe looked at it quite a bit differently than some of the writers did who were in the room that day. And I can tell you that's true about that outfit, because if you read the Tombstone epitaph, you read one thing of what happened at the OK Corral. If you read the other paper, I've forgotten the name of the other paper, the one that backs the, what is it? The Nugget. I think they backed the Clanton outfit to the victor go the spoils. It's completely different. But some things you can figure out. One of the things I'm going to bet happened at the OK Corral and the feud. I'm a bow hunter, and when I was a young man, I used to bow hunt. I used to bow hunt elk and deer. So in between bow hunt and elk and deer, because there'd be long times where you're not seeing any game, I might come across a stupid chicken and I'd take that bird, pin it up against a bush. I once got 2 birds with one thing. And but I learned something on this one bird. So I've got my arrow. When you don't have your broadhead in to kill big game, you put what's called a zwicky tip on there, because I can bounce a zwicky tip off that heritage sign up there, bounce it off, and the arrow won't be messed up. So it's been hours now, and I'm walking along, and I see some movement. Men's eyes see movement, women's eyes see detail. That's why we look in a refrigerator and we, honey, where's the mayonnaise? Right here. Oh, Jesus, honey, look at that. Look at that bird out there. Where? Right there, right there. Look at it, it's jumping up and down. Where? What are you talking about? Men see that, women see the mayonnaise in the refrigerator. There's a reason for that. It's cool to actually study that and learn it. But when you're hunting, it's movement that catches your eye. I'm just looking for something that doesn't look right here, because that's what they're doing. So now, boom, I see a little movement, and boom, I pin this grouse up against the tree, like bush. And just, you automatically, as a bow hunter, all you bow hunters know, you automatically knock another one up, and man, that's when I saw While I'd done that, there's a bird sitting right on top of that bush. He was there the whole time. And I got that bird. What I learned from that was what I took into creating our version of the OK Corral. In both accounts, the same woman said, "I don't know how it started, but all I remember is that tall man dressed in black didn't move, and he shot the one in the blue shirt." Wyatt Earp was the only person in that gunfight who didn't get winged or shot or killed. And I maintain it's because he didn't move. You learn those things in life and then you take them into some of the things that we do. That made a lot of sense to me. He didn't move. That tall man dressed in black, he didn't move. He stood there and just went boom, boom, boom. He didn't move. And he didn't get shot. Okay, that's my take from it. You know, that's my take from it. But you can go to, I mean, Bill Koch has a ranch in Colorado, about an hour and a half from where I am. He has the world's greatest collection of Western artifacts and memorabilia. And it's just fantastic. But he has full-time two of the best curators and guys who can tell you about the Western history. We have a ball because we go there and start a conversation, and they're on opposite sides of the story generally. He has them for that reason. So I'm no expert. I'm not the right person to ask that question, but having been a part of making that movie, it's a really good question, because I think that Wyatt was a very simple man of entrepreneurship, didn't want to have rules and regulations and made by other people getting in his way. So therefore, my rules, my regulation, that's what he did. That badge, just because you're wearing that badge don't make you right. Yeah, well, how's your head feel right now when you're saying that? Ow. You just been buffaloed. Buffalo, and we'll talk about it later, right? I mean, that was what Wyatt Earp did there. So there's probably both sides of the equation. You're dying. Your hand's gonna fall off. Go.
Time for one more question.
You're gonna have to. Somebody's gonna.
We got one last question.
I can't hear him. He's talking. Give him a chance. The man over there. He's in a chair, sitting down. He's got a hat on. There he is.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Could you tell the guitar story of Hateful about the guitar that broke?
You guys know what he's talking about? Todd, the what?
The guitar.
Oh, the guitar thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story because it's a non-event. We had to do something very interesting that once in a while we have to do. I had to come in on a Saturday with just Quentin and myself and Jennifer. Because he needs to know where we're talking about the scene in, what's the name of the movie?
The Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight. So we're doing a Hateful Eight, and there's a scene in that movie where I smash a guitar. So, as Quentin likes to do, he gets the actress with the guitar very early on. She starts rehearsing, and he's got the song that he wants her to sing. And so she's learning it because she's going to do it live. And, you know, that's one of those things that an actor gets a hold of, and they really, you know, she wants to kill it. She just knows she can. She wants to just do it great. So it's months she's doing this thing. I've got that guitar in her hand. And so, great girl, great person. And now we're coming, and now we get to the scene. But because of something, I don't know why, we needed to go in on a Saturday. I needed to smash a guitar so we could see what it looked like when it was busted. So just sort of do your best at how you think you're going to do this. We kind of choreographed it. Just so I can know where the stuff is on the floor. I guess they were shooting something else first. So we did that. Now, the only way you can do that, of course, is you've got a bunch of different guitars. We did 2 or 3 of them that day. And one thing I found out was it really hurts when you when you whack a guitar against a post with your bare hands, the strings cut into your hand. So it's like, I was really glad we did that. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So, you know, you learn what you're doing. So we busted a couple of guitars that day and did it. Now we're going to do this next week. We're doing the scene. A lot of movement in the scene, and there's a story, and I'm moving from one place to another. So there's timing, lighting cues, and things. And now we're going to do the shot. So I said, okay, how far do you want to go here? And he said, just keep going until I cut. I said, okay. So if I feel if you like it and it feels good, I'm gonna break the guitar down. He said, yeah, okay. We did a couple. We didn't cut. We didn't get to it because there were other things that weren't working. Generally me. And so whatever we did. And now we get done. The scene's gone well. And I'm saying to myself, it's very hard to keep this out of your head because you don't want to start playing that in the scene. You don't want to start playing what you're thinking. You want to be playing what you should be thinking in the scene, which is he's getting increasingly confused and tired, and he thinks she's messing with him now. And that is not going to work. This is a man who's been chained to this girl for a week, and you know, he's getting to the point now where he doesn't know what he wants to do with her. It's all running through his head. You know, I may kill you and then do something. I don't know. I mean, we're gonna, you know, he's running out of juice, and he's getting real fed up and real tired. Everything's getting more and more suspicious, and he's growing increasingly paranoid. And I think she's talking about me dying in Mexico, and that's it. And turnaround, and in that turnaround, I'm waiting. Cut. Doesn't say cut. So, wham! I smashed the guitar. We still got a little bit of the scene to do, so I smashed the guitar and said, no more music. Music time's over, whatever it was. Music time's over. Boom. And I turn around and I see her face, and that's not an actress working. She was just, I can't believe you did that. So, you know, it's on her face. I can't believe you did that. But she's still playing the scene. And I'm, okay, so I sit down. You know, something's not right here. And anyway, wait a minute. It's afterwards. What's the scuttlebutt around? So I said, that wasn't your guitar, was it? And she went, yeah. And I knew, of course, she was going to take that guitar with her. And I went, oh, no. So, number one, that's the story. Number two, that guitar at that time, I'd had several conversations with whoever was handling the guitar. It was just a prop. Jennifer, it was worth, God's my witness. So this will end this fun little fairy tale that goes around. $16,000. That's what it was worth. So, from a financial point of view, hey, this shit happens. It's my fault. I'm just the actor being, you stop me, I'll stop. You know, don't stop me, I'll figure something else out, right? But I don't think Quentin knew. I don't think anybody knew. And I think even Jennifer didn't really know it was going to go that far, and suddenly it was just over and it happened. So but that guitar, but here's the point that you may not know. Do you know what that guitar, how long ago was that? 7 years ago, or something like that? Huh? Nobody's ever seen it. Anyway, 7 years ago, it was 7 years ago. So in that 7 years, the last time I read about this, the guitar had gone from $250,000 to the commercial, priceless. Let me tell you something. There's no way they would ever let any one of us actors be in contact with anything that was priceless, let alone worth. Although we've driven some cool cars, crashed some pretty cool cars, but you know, that's just the, you know, that's what I know about it.
Okay. Sorry. We've got one question down front here from a younger fan.
Well, you know what's interesting about this is, what have I got to do? What have you got to do? What have you all got to do better than this? You want to ask a few questions?
I mean, we'll stick around as long as you want to.
I'm not coming back. Do it now. What do you got? You. Yeah. You.
Can I get your autograph?
You. Ask your question. You ask your question. I saw you waving, and so I decided to say, let's spend another 10, 15 minutes. What is it?
My name is Terry Anderson, and I'm with the Great Plains Stampede Rodeo in Southwest Oklahoma. You have been my crush forever. Disney days. My husband is...
Now you can see you're doing just fine here. I got the money right here. We're good. I'm going to pay you off.
Remember, I want
Great start.
But my question is, you mentioned that when you were driving the wagon, you were about 12. Did anybody keep that footage? And is there any way we can see it? I'd love to see it. I like a good brag.
You know, that's a great question because it wasn't a print. Back in those days, it would cost, you know, the cost of printing was a cost. And to those guys doing television series, it was a serious cost that they, you know, if you were going a little long on your, if you're printing too much, you heard about it. So I would, you know, unless Marty McFly was there with a camera that had a picture-taking ability, I would say no. You know. Okay, so now you're the moderator. You pick who you want to talk to. There's a little girl somewhere.
Yeah, we got a fan right down here.
Can I get your autograph?
That's a good question. Let me ask you something. I want you to answer me honestly in front of all these people.
Okay.
Why on earth would you want a piece of paper that has my name on it? Why would you want that? Why don't you go out and do something where other people ask you for your autograph?
Thank you.
But I'll give you my autograph, yes. Yeah.
We've got a persistent fan here.
What's your name, man? There you go. Autographs. It is a fascinating thing.
Remember what I said, go do your own
Let me
stuff.
just say that you are his favorite actor.
Thank you very much. That's nice. That's one.
One last question here. We got time for one more. I'm so sorry, folks. One last question.
Go ahead.
You got to work with Elvis Presley when you were a kid. How did that come about?
Good way of putting it.
How did that come about, and do you have any fun stories of interactions that you could tell?
Yeah, I actually, let's see if I can remember this right, because it's kind of interesting. I was about 10, I'd been working for a very short period of time. One of the few shows that I would watch on television once in a while, and why I was allowed to, I don't know, was the sci-fi show, Twilight Zone. So it was Twilight Zone. That's a long time ago. Okay, so it was Twilight Zone. I thought Twilight Zone was cool. And I go in for an interview. In those days, my agent, who was an older woman, like a second grandmother to me, really, she'd take me in on the interview, or she'd meet me there and pick me up or whatever. I really was. I was 10 years old, I guess. And so I go in for an interview for the Twilight Zone. And that's the first time I ever kind of went, God, that'd be great, you know? It'd be fun to do. So I go in and do the reading, and I get the job. I'm gonna do Twilight Zone, make some money. And I'm waiting now, and she's not there to pick me up because the interview went so short. It went quick. Boom, boom, in, out. And I'm kind of doing that. It's like that fun moment when everything's cool because whatever you were hoping for it's going to happen. You're going to do that, and you got some time to sort of enjoy it. When a guy walks by and he does a double take, he goes, "Well, hey, you remember the guy? I can't remember, a very famous man, Guy McLemore or something like that." Anyway, he comes by and he looks at me and goes, "So what are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just here doing an interview for the Twilight Zone." And go ahead, ask me, right? I got the job, right? It's like, I'm waiting for that. And he goes, who are you here with? And I said, nobody, I'm just waiting for my agent to pick me up. He goes, if you come with me, and he tells the secretary, tell him he's coming with me. Okay. I wish I could remember his name. And he was a very famous casting guy. And so famous I can't remember his name. And I go with him, and here's what the situation is. You're gonna kick this guy, and he's gonna give you a quarter to kick him. Okay? You play baseball, don't you? Yeah. You should be able to do this. Okay? So he puts on a pad, the other person, and I do the reading, and then I, boom, kick him in the pad. And they go, perfect. And I'm like,
what a challenge.
I got the job.
You did?
So I'm sitting there going, this is funny because I'm not doing this. I'm doing Twilight Zone. That's what's going to happen here. And she comes, and she said, how'd it go? I said, really good. I got the Twilight Zone. But it said somebody else came by and I did this interview. They want to talk to you in there, but I got the Twilight Zone job. She goes in and she says, you did get the Twilight Zone job, and you're going to do the Elvis Presley movie. So that's how it came about. All right. Anyway, hey, listen, very nice of you to all come out. And this is fun for me because it's still fun for me because I never do this. But it is actually a good time. You're a very different audience, and one that I will also say thank you very much from someone who is obviously very special in my life, and that's my father. So thanks from my dad, too. Good to see you.